Hi, welcome back to Mama's Got a Brand New Bag. Today we're going to talk about ostomies. And if that word alone makes you uncomfortable, nervous, curious, or if you just thought to yourself, I don't even know what an ostomy is, then I guess you're in the right place. Ostomies are often misunderstood. They're whispered about and they're framed as the worst case scenario. And they're the one thing that people hope that they never have to have. But for many people, an ostomy isn't the end of the story. It's the thing that allows the story to continue. Today, I want to talk about what ostomies are, the role that they play in IBD and other GI conditions, and what living with one has meant for me. Honestly, practically, and without the dramatic soundtrack that people tend to add in their brains. When I was diagnosed with IBD as a teen, I was so sick, and because we had limited treatment options at the time, we chose surgical treatment in an attempt to allow for bowel healing. I had a total colectomy with an ileal pouch anal anastomosis, which basically means that they removed all of my colon and then used some of my small intestine to make a pouch to act as a reservoir for stool, thereby giving me the ability to still poop normally and have some control over my bowel movements. For a period of time, patients often have temporary ileostomies to allow for surgical sites to heal. In my case, I had mine for 8 months. And then for 15 years, I did really well with my J pouch. But in 2015, I got very ill and we tried medications, but none were effective. And so I required a second ileostomy at that time. And this time it was permanent. They removed all the old pouch and any rectal and anal tissue that remained, and they created a new ileostomy, which is how I poop now. When my ostomy was new, I did everything I could to hide it, but now I'm much more comfortable with all things ostomy. It took some time to get there. So, what is an ostomy? At its most basic level, the word ostomy simply means a surgically created opening. That's it. It's not mystical, it's not catastrophic, it's a surgical change to anatomy. Depending on the situation, that could mean a tracheostomy where the hole is in the trachea, or a gastrostomy where the hole is in the stomach, an ileostomy where the hole is in the small intestine, a colostomy where the hole is in the colon, or a urostomy that's used for urinary diversion. And this is just to name a few ostomies. There are many more. They can be temporary or permanent. And here's the part that matters. An ostomy is not a disease. It's not a failure. It's not a moral judgment on your intestines. It's a medical solution. It's a tool designed to protect the body, allow healing, or restore function when something isn't working the way that it should be. So if you think of the GI system as plumbing, it's just being rerouted. Same house, different exit. The floor plan has changed, but the house is still standing and looks mostly the same on the outside. For patients with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, an ileostomy or a colostomy may allow the bowel time to rest and heal. It can prevent complications like fistulas, strictures, or abscesses, and it can restore quality of life after exhausting medical therapies. And while the idea of an ostomy can feel very overwhelming at first, for many patients, the day-to-day reality becomes far less dramatic than people imagine it to be. No violins, no slow motion hallway scenes in the hospital. It's just life in the one body that we were given. Ostomies also aren't limited just to IBD. They're used for colorectal cancer, bowel obstructions, congenital anomalies, severe motility disorders, or even traumatic injuries. What all of these situations have in common is this: the ostomy isn't the problem, it's the response to the problem. Let's talk about some misconceptions. One of the biggest myths is that ostomies automatically decrease your quality of life, that they represent the absolute worst case scenario. People worry about the smell, visibility, intimacy, clothing, travel, work, and listen. Those concerns are real, and I've had many of them myself. There's a learning curve, but I promise you, you will at some point become extremely knowledgeable about adhesive technology. And you will develop a routine to handle leaks at very inconvenient times, like in the middle of a grocery store or at 2 a.m. when you're half asleep. And you will learn who your main contact at the DME is for when you have supply questions or you receive a wrong product. But an ostomy does not mean giving up on your identity or your goals or your relationships, your career, or your sense of self. Another misconception is that ostomies are only for really sick people and that needing one means that you failed or that you were a bad patient. That mindset isn't just inaccurate, it's harmful. Choosing or needing an ostomy is often a proactive medical decision. It's not surrender, it's strategy. For me, living with an ostomy has been both challenging but deeply worthwhile. The learning curve was steep. Figuring out supplies, establishing routines, managing leaks, and navigating public spaces took some time. The emotional work was just as real, trusting that my decision to get an ostomy was a good one, redefining what normal now looked like, and untangling traumatic teenage memories from my first surgery. Now viewing them through my adult lens was hard. Back then, I was a minor. I lived at home. My parents handled a lot of the details behind the scenes. But this time, it was different. It was now my responsibility. After sharing my fears with my WOC nurse and the colorectal surgeon, something unexpected happened just a few weeks after surgery. I realized that I wish I hadn't waited so long. There was relief and stability and predictability, and feeling better physically created a space to heal emotionally in ways that I hadn't anticipated. Over time, the ostomy stopped feeling like a symbol of illness and started feeling like a symbol of resilience. It gave me back parts of my life that I didn't even realize I had lost. I didn't choose the disease that led me here, but I did choose my path forward. And while the bag wasn't exactly on my vision board, here we are. So, why is it important for me to talk about this openly? Well, I want to change the way that the world sees patients with ostomies. Ostomies don't need to be whispered about. They don't need to be hidden or framed as tragic. When we talk about them openly, we reduce fear. We create space for honest questions and answers. We support patients who are quietly terrified that this might be their future. Normalization doesn't mean pretending that it's easy, because it's not. And I have crumpled in tears on my bathroom floor more than once. But normalization means telling the truth without shame. Medical devices do not define worth. They do not define strength. They do not define identity. They are tools. And sometimes they are the tool that gives someone their life back and allows them to achieve their goals. If you're facing the possibility of an ostomy surgery, living with someone who has one, or supporting someone who's facing the surgery, I really hope that this episode makes one thing clear. An ostomy isn't the end. Chronic illness isn't about perfection. Trust me, chasing that will exhaust you. It's about resilience, adaptation, support, and living the best quality of life possible, even if it looks a little different from what you had planned. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope that you had fun learning about all things ostomy. Future episodes will continue exploring life with chronic illness, ostomy care, and the shared space between providers and patients. If you have burning questions, send them my way. I'm an open book. However you found this podcast and whatever convinced you to stay, I'm really glad you're here. Bye.